You brought your housemaid to my wedding wearing my family's stolen necklace?
No, I brought the woman who knows why your father buried a dead man's name beneath the east wing of Ashbourne Manor.
Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, can I ask you for a favor? Please hit subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support this channel in bringing you more interesting stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you. The bride's champagne glass slipped from her fingers the moment the maid walked into the wedding hall wearing the missing Ashbourne necklace. Crystals shattered across the marble floor. Every conversation inside the grand ballroom died at once. Standing beneath a ceiling of white roses and glittering chandeliers, billionaire real estate heir Dominic Vale tightened his arm around the young woman beside him. She wore a deep sapphire gown instead of her usual gray uniform, and her dark curls fell freely over her shoulders. Yet it was not the dress, the diamonds, or the stunned silence that made everyone stare. It was the way Dominic looked at her, not like a servant, not like an employee, like the only woman in the room. His former fiancée, Cassandra Ashbourne, stood at the altar in a custom-made ivory gown, her face drained of color. The necklace resting against the maid's throat had belonged to Cassandra's late grandmother. It had disappeared 3 years earlier. On the same night, Cassandra ended her engagement to Dominic and publicly accused his family of theft. Now it had returned around the neck of a woman no one believed belonged among them. Cassandra's new groom leaned toward her. "You said that necklace was stolen." "It was," she whispered. Dominic heard her. "So did I," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "Until this morning." The maid beside him, Liana Brooks, turned her anxious eyes toward him. "Dominic," she murmured, "this was a mistake. We should leave." Before he could answer, Cassandra pushed through the shocked guests and grabbed Liana's wrist. "You little thief." Dominic moved so quickly that several people gasped. He caught Cassandra's hand and pulled it away before her fingers could touch Liana. "Do not put your hands on her." Cassandra stared at him in disbelief. "You brought your housemaid to my wedding wearing my family's stolen necklace, and you're threatening me." "No," Dominic said quietly. "I brought the woman who knows why your father buried a dead man's name beneath the east wing of Ashbourne Manor." The groom's smile vanished. Cassandra stepped backward, and somewhere near the ballroom doors, an elderly man dropped his cane. Liana felt Dominic's fingers close around hers. Only 12 hours earlier, those same fingers had been resting against her cheek as he stood inches from her in the darkness of his private library. She had been trying not to breathe. A storm had cut the power to Vale House shortly after midnight, leaving the enormous mansion lit only by lightning and the fireplace. Liana had entered the library carrying a tray of candles and found Dominic standing at the tall windows, his white dress shirt open at the collar and his suit jacket discarded across a chair. He had been watching the rain, or pretending to. "You should be asleep," she had said. "So should you." "I'm working." "You've been working since yesterday morning." That tends to happen when someone announces at dinner that he is attending his ex-fiancée's wedding and expects the entire house prepared before dawn. Dominic had almost smiled, almost. For 5 years he had worn silence like armor. Business magazines called him ruthless, disciplined, and impossible to read. His employees feared disappointing him. His competitors feared being noticed by him. Liana did neither. She placed the candles on the desk. "Mrs. Doyle wants to know which tuxedo you're wearing." "I'm not going." Liana looked at him. "You invited half the staff to panic all night for nothing." "I changed my mind." "Because of the storm." "Because attending Cassandra's wedding would serve no purpose." "Then why did you accept the invitation?" His jaw tightened. Liana already knew the answer. Everyone in the city knew it. 3 years earlier, Dominic and Cassandra had been the most celebrated couple in Boston's elite circles. Their engagement had united two powerful families and filled society magazines for months. Then, 1 week before their wedding, Cassandra accused Dominic's late father of stealing the Ashbourne necklace during a private charity dinner. The accusation had destroyed more than an engagement. Dominic's father suffered a fatal heart attack 2 days after reporters surrounded him outside the family offices. No evidence was found against him, but Cassandra never withdrew her claim. Dominic never forgave her. Now she was marrying Grant Wexler, the ambitious son of a senator at Ashbourne Manor. Liana crossed her arms. "You're still in love with her." Dominic turned from the window. "No." That was fast. It was also true. "Then you're afraid." A flash of lightning illuminated his face. "Choose your next words carefully, Miss Brooks." She should have lowered her eyes. She should have apologized. Instead, she walked closer. "You're afraid of walking into that house and remembering who you were before she humiliated you." His gaze held hers. And who was I? A man who trusted someone. The fireplace crackled behind her. Rain struck the windows harder. Dominic's voice dropped. "Trust is expensive. Only when you give it to the wrong people." Something changed in his expression. Liana had worked at Vale House for 11 months, after taking the position to pay for her younger brother's medical school tuition. She cleaned rooms, arranged meals, and stayed invisible whenever wealthy guests came through the doors. But Dominic always saw her. He noticed when she replaced the lilies in the dining room because their smell gave his mother headaches. He knew she read legal thrillers during lunch. He once drove across the city at 2 in the morning after her brother was injured in a car accident, then sat beside her at the hospital without speaking until the doctor said he would recover. Neither of them discussed that night. They also never discussed the tension that had grown between them since. Dominic stepped closer until the firelight touched both their faces. "You think you know me?" "No," Liana whispered. "I think you want everyone to believe no one can." His hand rose. For one impossible second, she thought he might dismiss her. Instead, he brushed a loose curl away from her cheek. Liana's heartbeat stumbled. "Tell me to stop," he said. She should have. He was her employer. He belonged to a world that judged women like her before they opened their mouths. And in the morning, he would attend the wedding of the woman whose shadow still lived inside his home. But Liana had spent too many months pretending she did not feel the air change whenever he entered a room. She looked at his mouth. "Would you?" "If you asked." She did not ask. Dominic lowered his head and kissed her. It began gently, almost cautiously, as though both of them understood one reckless second could ruin everything. Then Liana's fingers curled into his shirt, and the restraint between them broke. He pulled her against him. The kiss deepened with months of unspoken longing, frustration, and loneliness. Liana felt his hand settle at her waist, steadying her as thunder shook the windows. For the first time, Dominic did not seem cold. He seemed starved. When they finally separated, his forehead rested against hers. "This cannot happen again," Liana whispered breathlessly. "No." Neither of them moved. "You agree too quickly." "I'm trying to lie convincingly." A soft laugh escaped her before she could stop it. Dominic smiled then, a real smile, rare and devastating. The moment vanished when something heavy struck the hallway floor. They turned. The library door stood open. An old wooden box lay on the carpet outside, its contents scattered across the hall. Liana stepped away from Dominic. "I must have knocked it from the linen cabinet." That box wasn't in the linen cabinet. He walked into the hall and crouched beside it. The container was dark walnut, scratched with age, and engraved with the Vale family crest. Several sealed letters had spilled from inside. Beneath them rested a faded photograph of two young men standing outside Ashbourne Manor. One was Dominic's father. The other was Liana's father. Her breath stopped. She snatched up the photograph. "No." Dominic looked from the picture to her. "Who is he?" "My father." The man in the photograph was younger than Liana remembered, but there was no mistaking his gentle eyes or the scar above his left eyebrow. Samuel Brooks had died when Liana was 16. Her mother said he had worked as a groundskeeper before an accident ended his life. She had never said where. Dominic picked up one of the letters. It was addressed to his father, written in Samuel's handwriting. Liana recognized it immediately. Dominic broke the brittle seal and unfolded the page. His face hardened as he read. "What does it say?" He remained silent. "Dominic." He handed her the letter. "Arthur, I found the necklace inside Edmund's study, along with the payments made through Wexler Holdings. He knows we saw the records. If anything happens to me, protect my daughters and tell the police to search beneath the east wing. Do not trust Cassandra. Her father has already taught her how to lie. Samuel." Liana read it twice, then a third time. Her hands began to shake. "My father didn't die in an accident." Dominic lifted the rest of the letters from the floor. According to these, he discovered Cassandra's father using Ashbourne charities to move money into private accounts. My father helped him collect evidence. Then why didn't your father go to the police? He did. Dominic found another document, this one stamped by the Boston Police Department. The report had been closed after a senior investigator declared Samuel's death accidental. The investigator's name was Charles Wexler, Grant Wexler's uncle. Liana sank onto a chair. Dominic read through the papers with growing fury. My father hid this because he believed someone was watching our family. The night the necklace disappeared, he intended to give the evidence to a federal prosecutor. But Cassandra accused him before he could. She didn't simply end our engagement. His voice turned bitter. She silenced him. Liana looked at the photograph again. All her life, she had believed her father died because a railing broke at a construction site. She remembered her mother crying behind a locked bedroom door. She remembered the closed coffin and the warning never to ask questions about Ashbourne Manor. Now the truth sat in her lap. Dominic crouched before her. "We need to take these documents to the authorities." "What if they disappear again?" "They won't." "You don't know that." "No," he said. "But I know Cassandra invited nearly every journalist, politician, and wealthy donor in the state to her wedding." Liana understood before he finished. "You want to expose them publicly. I want them unable to bury the truth." She stood quickly, "Then go." "You're coming with me." Her eyes widened. "To Cassandra Ashbourne's wedding." "You're the daughter of the man they killed. And the woman who cleans your house. Do you know what they'll do when they see me beside you?" "Yes." "They'll laugh." "Let them. They'll call me an opportunist. They'll say I seduced you." Dominic rose and stood before her. "Did you?" The question startled her. "You kissed me." "You kissed me back." "This is not funny." "I'm not laughing." His gaze softened as he took her hand. "Liana, I've spent 3 years letting those people decide what my silence meant. They called my father a thief because I believed dignity meant refusing to fight in public. I was wrong. Silence only gave them room to write the story themselves." She looked down at their joined hands. "And what story will they write about us?" "That depends." "On what?" "Whether you're brave enough to walk into that ballroom with me." She lifted her eyes. "As what?" Dominic paused. Not as my maid hovered between them, but he did not say it. Instead, he reached into the wooden box and removed a velvet pouch. Inside rested a magnificent diamond and sapphire necklace. The missing Ashbourne necklace. Liana stepped back. "That was here all this time." "My father must have hidden it with the evidence." "You can't possibly expect me to wear it." They accused him of stealing it. Cassandra built her reputation on that lie. You will walk into her wedding wearing the proof that the necklace never left my family's possession and carrying the letter written by your father. It will look like a declaration of war. It is. By 7 that morning, Vale House had become a storm of its own. Dominic's attorneys copied every document. A trusted federal contact received encrypted files. His security team prepared to accompany them to the estate. Liana stood in a guest bedroom while Dominic's mother, Edmund Vale, fastened the sapphire gown around her. The older woman's hands were gentle. "I wore this dress once," Edmund said, "at an event where Cassandra told me women without old family names should know when they were merely guests." Liana looked at her through the mirror. "What did you say?" "That my husband bought the building." Despite everything, Liana smiled. Evelyn placed the necklace around her throat. The diamonds felt heavy. "Mrs. Vale, I don't know if I can do this." "You can." "They will tear me apart." "They will try," Evelyn said. "But those people have mistaken cruelty for power their entire lives. Today, they're going to discover the difference." When Liana descended the staircase, Dominic was waiting in a black tuxedo. He stared at her for so long she became self-conscious. "Say something." "You're beautiful." The simplicity of it tightened her chest. "Dominic, about last night." "I know." "No, you don't." He came closer. She lowered her voice. "Whatever happens today, I won't let you use me to hurt Cassandra." His expression changed. "Is that what you think this is?" "I don't know what to think. 12 hours ago, I was arranging your breakfast. Then you kissed me. Now I'm wearing a dead woman's necklace to your ex-fiancée's wedding." He touched her face, more carefully than he had in the library. "I'm bringing you because your father deserves justice." "And the kiss?" "That had nothing to do with Cassandra." "Then what did it mean?" His thumb brushed her cheek. "It meant I'm tired of pretending the best part of coming home isn't finding you there." Liana's breath caught. He leaned toward her, but she placed one hand against his chest. "Not yet." Dominic stopped. "Today has to be about the truth." He nodded, though disappointment flickered across his face. "Then after today." She looked into his eyes. "After today, ask me again." They arrived at Ashbourne Manor just before the ceremony. The estate rose above the Charles River like a monument to wealth. White stone, sweeping gardens and rows of luxury cars lining the circular driveway. Security guards checked every invitation, but no one dared block Dominic Vale. Inside, nearly 400 guests turned as he entered with Liana on his arm. Whispers spread instantly. "Isn't that his maid? She works at Vale House. Why is she wearing that necklace? Cassandra is going to lose her mind." Liana held her head high, though her legs threatened to fail beneath her. Dominic leaned toward her. "Look at me." She did. "Forget them." "That's difficult when they're discussing me like an unexplained disease." His mouth almost curved. "You're the most important person in this room." Before she could respond, the orchestra stopped. Cassandra saw them. Her champagne glass fell. The confrontation unfolded faster than Liana expected. Within minutes, Dominic had announced that he possessed evidence connecting Edmund Ashbourne and the Wexler family to embezzlement, obstruction of justice, and Samuel Brooks's death. Phones rose throughout the ballroom. Guests began recording. Grant Wexler pushed through the crowd, fury burning across his face. "This wedding is over until security removes them." "No one is removing anyone," a man called from the entrance. 2 federal agents entered with Dominic's attorney. The guests erupted into frightened murmurs. Edmund Ashbourne, Cassandra's father, appeared near the altar. His face remained composed, but Liana noticed his right hand trembling. "This is a pathetic act of revenge," Edmund declared. "Dominic could not bear seeing my daughter marry another man, so he recruited a servant to perform this spectacle." Liana stepped forward before Dominic could stop her. "My father was Samuel Brooks." Edmund's confidence cracked, only for a second, but she saw it. "You remember him," Liana said. I remember hundreds of employees. He wrote that you threatened him. Dead men cannot be questioned. No, she replied, but financial records can. Dominic's attorney distributed copies to several journalists. The room exploded with questions. Cassandra stared at the papers as though they were written in a foreign language. Father, tell them it isn't true. Edmund did not look at her. Grant seized Dominic by the lapel. You self-righteous bastard. Dominic struck his hand away. Security rushed between them. Then Cassandra lunged toward Liana. You destroyed my wedding. She raised her hand, but Dominic caught her wrist. Do not touch her. The room fell silent again. Cassandra's eyes filled with humiliation and rage. You're defending her, in front of all these people. Yes. She scrubbed your floors. And you buried the truth that killed my father. Cassandra's face twisted. You think she loves you. She found those letters because she went searching for money. Women like her always do. Liana stiffened. Dominic's voice became dangerously calm. Women like her. You know what I mean. No, say it. Cassandra glanced around the ballroom, suddenly aware of the cameras. Edmund stepped forward. Enough. He pulled Cassandra away, then turned toward Liana. You've made a terrible mistake coming here. Liana held his gaze. My father said the same thing about trusting you. For the first time, Edmund smiled. It was not a frightened smile. It was the smile of a man who still believed he controlled the room. Your father, he said, was not killed because of what he discovered. Liana's stomach tightened. He was killed because of what he stole. Dominic frowned. The necklace. Edmund laughed softly. The necklace was meaningless. He faced the guests. The real secret Samuel Brooks took from this house was a child. Liana stopped breathing. Edmund pointed directly at her. Her. A wave of confusion moved through the ballroom. Liana shook her head. You're lying. Ask your mother why no birth certificate exists before your second birthday. Ask her why she fled Boston the night Samuel died. Her knees weakened. Dominic stepped between them. This is another distraction. No, Edmund replied. This is the reason Arthur Vale helped conceal a kidnapping for 27 years. Cassandra stared at her father. What are you saying? Edmund's gaze never left Liana. I'm saying the woman wearing your grandmother's necklace is not Samuel Brooks's biological daughter. He paused, savoring every stunned face. She is my firstborn child, and the legal heir to everything Cassandra believes belongs to her. For several seconds, no one inside Ashbourne Manor moved. Liana heard the cameras clicking. She heard someone whisper her name. She heard the broken champagne glass crunch beneath a guest's shoe. But Edmund Ashbourne's words drowned out everything else. His firstborn child. His legal heir. No, Liana said. The word barely escaped her throat. Edmund studied her with unsettling satisfaction. Your mother called you Delilah. My mother's name was Rachel Brooks. The woman who raised you was Rachel Brooks. Liana turned toward Dominic, desperate to find certainty in his face, but even he looked shaken. Cassandra pushed past her father. This is ridiculous. You only have one daughter. Edmund's expression sharpened. That is what you were told. What do you mean, what I was told? Before he could answer, the ballroom doors opened again. A frail woman in a dark coat stood between two federal agents. Liana's heart stopped. Mom! Rachel Brooks looked smaller than Liana remembered from that morning. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled into a loose bun, and fear hollowed her face. Yet when she saw Liana wearing the sapphire necklace, tears immediately filled her eyes. I told them not to bring you here, Rachel whispered. Liana walked toward her slowly. Tell me he's lying. Rachel's lips trembled. Tell me. The silence answered first. Liana stepped backward as though she had been struck. Dominic moved beside her, but she lifted one hand, stopping him. Rachel reached toward her. "Sweetheart, please." "Who am I?" "You are my daughter." "That isn't what I asked." Rachel closed her eyes. 27 years earlier, Edmund Ashbourne had been newly married to Cassandra's mother, Victoria, when he began an affair with a young archivist named Marisol Vega. Marisol became pregnant, but Edmund refused to acknowledge the child. He feared a scandal would cost him control of the Ashbourne Trust, whose strict inheritance terms transferred power to the eldest legally recognized descendant. When Marisol threatened to expose him, Edmund confined her to a private property outside Boston until she gave birth. Samuel Brooks had been one of the estate's maintenance workers. Rachel worked in the kitchen. They heard the baby crying behind a locked upstairs door. "Your father found Marisol unconscious one night," Rachel said, her voice breaking. "She had been beaten." A horrified murmur spread through the ballroom. Edmund remained unnaturally still. Rachel continued. "She begged Samuel to take you. She believed Edmund would kill you rather than risk losing the estate." "You expect anyone to believe this?" Edmund demanded. Rachel looked directly at him. "I expect you to remember the scar you left on Marisol's neck." His face changed. It was slight, but the cameras caught it. Liana's fingers curled at her sides. "What happened to my biological mother?" Rachel's eyes dropped. "No. Liana. No, look at me and tell me." "Marisol disappeared 3 days after we took you." Edmund interrupted coldly. "She abandoned her child and fled." Rachel's grief turned to anger. "You buried her beneath the east wing." The room erupted. Cassandra staggered away from her father. Grant Wexler seized her arm. "Don't listen to this." She tore herself free. "Did you know?" "Of course not." "Did you know?" Grant looked toward Edmund. That single glance exposed him. Cassandra's face crumpled. "You knew." Edmund raised his voice over the crowd. "This entire performance is built on the accusations of a frightened servant and her ambitious daughter." Liana looked at him. A frightened servant, an ambitious daughter. Those were the same weapons Cassandra had used minutes earlier, the same contempt wrapped in polished language, the same belief that wealth could decide whose pain deserved to be believed. Liana removed the necklace. For one moment, Edmund smiled as though he expected her to surrender it. Instead, she held it up before the cameras. "You said this necklace was meaningless." "It is." "Then why did you frame Arthur Vale for stealing it?" His smile disappeared. Dominic understood immediately. "The necklace wasn't hidden with the evidence by accident," he said. "It contained something." He took it from Liana and examined the sapphire pendant. Along its silver edge was a tiny hinge nearly invisible beneath the diamonds. Dominic pressed it. The pendant opened. Inside was a small brass key. Edmund bolted toward them. Federal agents blocked him before he crossed half the ballroom. "Give me that," he shouted. The dignified patriarch vanished in an instant. His composure fractured as he struggled against the agents. Dominic held the key between 2 fingers. "What does it open?" Edmund's eyes burned with hatred. Rachel answered, "A vault beneath the east wing." One of the agents approached Dominic. "We have a warrant to search the property. We'll take the key." Dominic handed it over. Edmund stopped struggling. Then he laughed. It was a low, empty sound that silenced the room. "You believe you've won because you found a key?" he asked. "By the time you reach that vault, there will be nothing left to discover." A sharp explosion shook the manor. Guests screamed. The chandeliers trembled and music stands toppled across the ballroom. Smoke rose beyond the tall windows from the eastern side of the estate. "The east wing," someone shouted. Edmund had planned for this. Sprinklers burst overhead. Water poured across gowns, tuxedos, and floral arrangements as guests rushed toward the exits. Dominic caught Liana's hand. "We need to get outside." "My mother." Rachel was swept away by the panicked crowd. Liana tried to reach her, but a burning ceiling decoration crashed between them. Dominic pulled Liana back just before the flames struck the floor. "Rachel is with the agents," he said. "Come with me." Grant pushed through the smoke toward a service corridor instead of the main exit. Cassandra saw him. "Grant!" He ignored her. Liana followed his path with her eyes and noticed the leather case clutched beneath his jacket. "He has something." Dominic turned. Grant disappeared down the corridor leading toward the eastern gardens. "Stay with Cassandra," Dominic ordered. "You are not going after him alone." Liana. She was already running. They raced through the service corridor as another explosion thundered behind them. Smoke rolled along the ceiling. Grant shoved a kitchen worker out of his way, kicked open a rear door and sprinted into the gardens. Rain from the previous night had left the stone paths slick. Dominic gained on him near the hedge maze. "Stop!" Grant looked over his shoulder and drew a gun. Dominic pulled Liana behind a stone fountain as a shot cracked through the garden. Marble splintered above their heads. Liana's breath came in sharp bursts. "You should have stayed inside," Dominic said. "So should you." "This is not the time to prove you're stubborn. He has evidence about my parents. And he has a gun. Then stop arguing and think." Despite the danger, Dominic almost laughed. Another bullet struck the fountain. Grant's footsteps moved toward the river. Liana looked through a gap in the stonework. Beyond the hedges, a narrow dock extended into the dark water. A motorboat was tied there. "He's trying to escape." Dominic removed his tuxedo jacket and handed it to her. "When I move, run toward the greenhouse." "What are you going to do?" "Make him look at me." "That plan is terrible. It only needs to work once." Before she could stop him, Dominic stepped from behind the fountain. "Grant!" Grant spun and aimed. Dominic ran in the opposite direction, drawing the gunfire away from Liana. She sprinted toward the greenhouse, but instead of entering it, she circled behind the hedges. She reached the dock as Grant climbed into the boat. The leather case lay momentarily unattended beside him. Liana lunged for it. Grant caught her wrist and dragged her onto the dock. "You have no idea what you're interfering with. My father died because of that case. Your father died because he was foolish." Liana struck him across the face. Grant staggered, then grabbed her by the throat. Dominic slammed into him from the side. The two men crashed onto the wet boards. The gun skidded toward the edge of the dock. Grant punched Dominic hard in the jaw. Dominic drove his shoulder into Grant's stomach and forced him against a wooden post. Liana reached for the weapon. Grant kicked Dominic away and dove toward her. The dock railing snapped beneath his weight. For one suspended second, Grant clung to the broken edge above the river. Dominic grabbed his wrist. Grant stared up at him, shocked. "Pull me up." Dominic's jaw tightened. This was the man whose family had helped conceal Samuel's death. The man who had brought a gun to a wedding and nearly killed Liana. Still, Dominic tightened his grip. "Give me your other hand." Grant reached upward, then he pulled a small knife from his sleeve. Liana saw it first. "Dominic." Grant slashed at Dominic's arm. Dominic released him instinctively. Grant plunged into the river. He surfaced once, fighting against the current, then disappeared beneath the dock. Security officers and federal agents arrived moments later. Two of them jumped into the water while others secured the gun and leather case. Dominic sat against the post, blood running from the cut on his forearm. Liana dropped beside him. "You're hurt." "It's shallow." "You don't know that." Her hands trembled as she pressed his jacket against the wound. Dominic watched her face. "You came back for the case." "I came back for you." The confession escaped before she could stop it. Everything around them seemed to fade. The shouting agents, the smoke above the manor, the sirens approaching from the distance. Dominic lifted his uninjured hand and touched her cheek. Liana. No, tears filled her eyes. You don't get to make that face now. You nearly got yourself killed. You followed a man with a gun. Because you followed him first. I was protecting you. And who protects you? His expression softened. You do, he said. She stared at him. Then she kissed him. It was not the hesitant kiss they had shared in the library. It carried fear, relief, and everything she had refused to say before the wedding. Dominic's hand slid behind her neck as he kissed her back, pulling her closer despite the pain in his arm. When they separated, Liana kept her forehead against his. Ask me again, she whispered. His eyes searched hers. What did the kiss mean? It meant I'm tired of pretending the safest place I know isn't beside you. Federal agents recovered Grant alive several minutes later. He was taken into custody as paramedics treated him for hypothermia and a fractured shoulder. The leather case contained documents Edmund had planned to remove before the vault was searched. Original trust records, payments made to Charles Wexler, photographs of Marisol during her captivity, and a handwritten confession from the doctor who falsified her death certificate. Firefighters controlled the blaze before it reached the underground vault. Inside, investigators found financial ledgers, recorded conversations, and human remains later confirmed through DNA testing to belong to Marisol Vega. Samuel Brooks had not stolen a child. He had saved one. Arthur Vale had spent years secretly protecting Rachel and Liana while collecting enough evidence to challenge Edmund. Cassandra discovered part of the truth shortly before her engagement to Dominic. Edmund convinced her that exposing the necklace's disappearance would protect the family. She chose her inheritance over an innocent man's name. She never knew the lie would help cause Arthur's death. By sunset, the grand wedding had become the largest criminal scandal in the state. Edmund Ashbourne was arrested for conspiracy, kidnapping, fraud, obstruction of justice, and his role in the deaths of Samuel and Marisol. Grant and his uncle faced charges for destroying evidence and covering up the crimes. Cassandra sat alone in the ruined bridal suite when Liana found her. Her wet wedding dress clung to her shoulders. Makeup stained her cheeks, and the diamond tiara had been thrown onto the floor. "Have you come to take this room too?" Cassandra asked. Liana remained near the door. "I came to see whether you were hurt." Cassandra laughed bitterly. "You exposed my father, destroyed my wedding, took my inheritance, and stole the man I was supposed to marry 3 years ago. Why would you care whether I'm hurt?" "I didn't steal Dominic." "You expect me to believe he brought you here because of justice." "He brought me because I was afraid to come alone." Cassandra looked away. "You knew his father was innocent," Liana said. Cassandra's shoulders stiffened. "I knew there were questions." "You accused him anyway." "My father said Arthur was planning to destroy us. He said Dominic would leave me if the truth came out." "So you destroyed him first." Tears slipped down Cassandra's face. "I loved Dominic." "No, you loved the life you believed he guaranteed." Cassandra flinched. Liana did not enjoy hurting her. In another life, they might have been raised as sisters. Instead, Edmund had taught one daughter she was disposable and the other that everyone else was beneath her. "I don't want your inheritance," Liana said. Cassandra looked at her. "It belongs to you." "I want my parents' names cleared. I want the stolen charity money returned. I want every employee your father silenced compensated. And the estate." Liana looked around the room filled with damaged flowers and abandoned gifts. "It can become something useful." 3 months later, Ashbourne Manor no longer belonged to the Ashbourne family. Liana transferred much of the recovered fortune into a foundation named for Samuel Brooks and Marisol Vega. The charity funded legal aid for domestic workers, scholarships for low-income students, and emergency housing for women escaping abuse. The manor's east wing was rebuilt as a public archive documenting the crimes committed there and the people who had risked their lives to expose them. Cassandra testified against her father and the Wexlers in exchange for a reduced sentence for her own role in the conspiracy. She lost her social position, most of her wealth, and every friend who had valued her name more than her character. Months later, she quietly began working with investigators to identify other victims of her father's schemes. It was not forgiveness, but it was a beginning. On the evening the Samuel and Marisol Foundation officially opened, Liana stood alone on the manor's terrace. Music drifted from the ballroom, where journalists, donors, and former estate workers gathered beneath new chandeliers. She wore no diamonds, only a simple navy dress and the small silver locket Rachel had given her as a child. Dominic approached from behind. "You disappeared." "I needed air." He stood beside her, overlooking the river. His arm had healed, though a thin scar remained near his wrist. "The board approved the scholarship expansion," he said. "All 50 places." 100. Liana turned. "Dominic, you said 50, I disagreed. You cannot solve every problem by doubling the budget. I've solved several that way." She smiled, arrogant. "Practical." Their relationship had not become easy simply because they loved each other. Liana refused to move into Vale House until she completed her work establishing the foundation. Dominic struggled to stop solving problems without consulting her. They argued. They apologized. They learned. Most importantly, Dominic never again introduced her as someone who worked for him. He introduced her as Liana Brooks, founder and executive director of the Samuel and Marisol Foundation, and the woman he loved. He reached into his pocket. Liana narrowed her eyes. "What are you doing?" "Something I have been advised not to do during the first year of a relationship." "Then don't do it." He held out a folded piece of paper instead of a ring. She took it cautiously. It was an employment termination letter. Liana stared at him. "You're firing me. You haven't cleaned a room in 6 months. I have been busy exposing your social class. And you're excellent at it." She laughed and folded the letter. Dominic's expression became serious. "The first night I kissed you, you asked what story people would write about us. I remember. They wrote that you were my maid. Then they wrote that you were an heiress. After that, they called you a victim, a survivor, and a scandal." Liana leaned against the stone railing. "The newspapers enjoy changing their minds." "What do you call yourself?" She considered the question. "Samuel and Rachel Brooks's daughter, Marisol Vega's daughter, a woman who was loved enough for 3 people to risk everything to keep her alive." Dominic nodded. "And us." She looked toward the ballroom where Rachel stood laughing with Edmund Vale. "That depends." "On what?" "Whether you still believe trust is expensive." He stepped closer. "It is." Her eyebrows rose. "But you were worth everything it cost me." He kissed her beneath the terrace lights. Behind them, the ballroom doors opened, and dozens of guests began applauding. Liana pulled back, laughing as Dominic looked over her shoulder in irritation. "Your mother planned this," she said. "My mother has been planning our wedding since the hospital. We are not engaged." Evelyn raised a champagne glass from the doorway. "Not yet." More laughter spread across the terrace. Dominic looked at Liana. There was no audience in his eyes, no former fiancée, no scandal, and no need to prove anything to the people watching. There was only her. He reached into his other pocket. This time he lowered himself onto one knee. The crowd fell silent. Liana covered her mouth. "I was going to wait," he said, "but apparently the women in my life have no respect for careful planning." Evelyn smiled proudly. Dominic opened a small velvet box. Inside was a modest diamond ring set around a deep blue sapphire. Liana recognized the stone. It had been removed from the Ashbourne necklace before the remaining jewels were sold to help fund the foundation. This sapphire once represented everything that separated our worlds, Dominic said. I wanted to represent the moment those worlds stopped mattering. Tears blurred Liana's vision. Liana Brooks, you walked into my home when I had forgotten how to trust anyone. You challenged me, frightened me, kissed me during a storm, and followed an armed criminal after I specifically told you not to. You are ruining this proposal. I'm being accurate. The guests laughed softly. Dominic's voice lowered. You taught me that love is not about rescuing someone. It is about standing beside them while they discover they were never powerless. Will you stand beside me for the rest of our lives? Liana looked at Rachel. The woman who had raised her was crying openly. She looked at Evelyn, then at the workers whose testimony had finally been heard. She thought of Samuel, Arthur, and Marisol, all the people whose courage had carried her to that terrace. Then she looked at Dominic. Yes. The word had barely left her mouth before he rose and pulled her into his arms. Applause thundered through the estate. Dominic slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her as white lights glittered across the river. 1 year earlier, Liana had entered Vale House through the servants' door believing survival meant remaining unnoticed. Now she stood in the center of a home built from the ruins of a powerful family's lies, surrounded by people who knew her name. She had not stunned the crowd because she wore a priceless necklace. She had stunned them because when the wealth, titles, and carefully protected secrets were stripped away, the maid they had dismissed was the only person brave enough to tell the truth. And the millionaire who had once brought her to a wedding as an act of justice never again allowed the world to call her his servant. From that day forward, he called her his equal, his greatest love, and eventually his wife.